idea of naming your company Noise come about?
Normally, you just get guided by the people, aisa karna chahiye, waisa karna chahiye, you should try that and not this. So I think there's a lot of noise there. So ultimately, when you do things that you really love, gets you to the heights.
You don't come from a business family. You have no sort of entrepreneurial background. What made both of you start up?
In India, you look at it, there was only cheap Chinese knockoffs or brands like Apple, and I think BlackBerry was there.
And that's when we started thinking about why don't we get into a space which is more Indianized, yet premium, yet aspirational, and give that value to the consumer and give that experience of a global brand.
You know, around you, everybody is raising $1 billion or, crazy amounts of money. Was there never a temptation?
For us, color of money is important. Maybe when Bose came in, actually. So maybe we could.
How did that happen?
Bose has never made such investments in the past. So we are the first consumer investment in the history of Bose also.
The other big trend that we're seeing in the startup ecosystem are companies IPOing. Any plans, any thoughts?
IPO is a milestone for any company, but I think we enjoy our freedom also.
You intend going down the phone route?
No, I don't think. We are happy with this space.
So that's a Lakshman Rekha.
There's no to anything and not easy yes to everything.
What was that like for you? I mean, getting a Virat Kohli, for instance, on board.
Who's the right fit for the brand? Who's that noise maker who makes the noise in his own field, who is fitness freak, who can, influence the customer?
He was Bhaiya and you were the young boy who was following him around.
When I was getting married, he was dating, for an example. When I was having kids, he was thinking of getting married.
Do you miss aviation at all?
Not miss that much, but yeah, I try and keep my license renewed.
So you've been managing to log in the hours
Fortunately,
to renew it?
this business allows me to spend that money extra on keeping my license renewed.
Maybe he has in his back of mind that he might need to go back there.
Go back at some point,
that's a backup plan.
Hello and welcome to Young Turks Reloaded. I'm Shereen Bhan. My guests on the show today have an unusual story. Unusual, why? Because they're not your typical tech startup. It's a company that was started 10 years ago by two cousins who decided to get into the consumer tech business. So that's the fun, first unusual aspect of it. Two, they decided to bootstrap it and not get on any venture funding. That's the second unusual aspect about it. And number three, they decided to get into a business that is competitive and often can be commoditized. Joining me on the program are two young entrepreneurs who've slowly and steadily made their way into the consumer tech business in India without a lot of noise. So make some noise now for Gaurav and Amit Khatri. Thanks very much for joining us. Very bad pun there. But let me start by asking you, Amit. Let's start with noise itself, the name. How did this idea of naming your company Noise come about?
So first of all, thank you for having us here and a great introduction. Like we were talking, noise when we started, so we were just thinking around what name to be done. We were browsing through all dictionaries and all, but we realized that name has to be young, first of all. You need to be able to pronounce it smartly, and like he was saying that all youngsters are bombarded with ideas like ye kar lo, wo kar lo, and at least 10-20 years.
Ye kya kar rahe ho? Not ye kar rahe ho, ye kya kar rahe ho?
Or yehi karo. So we realized that noise is a good name, and that resonated well with everyone around, and it's like listen to the noise within.
So listen to the noise within. That's what this is about. So it was also making a statement to the world about the fact that you've decided to forge your own path.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think my childhood has been such and in fact, a lot of Indians have the same childhood where everybody is telling what to do and what not to do.
And he's 9 years older than you, so he also has a right to tell you what to do or what not to do.
He has all his hands to shape my career and where am I today. So a lot of right things that I've been guided by him, but otherwise normally you just get guided by the people, aisa karna chahiye, waisa karna chahiye, you should try that and not this. So I think there's a lot of noise there. So ultimately when you do things that you really love, gets you to the heights. So I think that worked for us.
So this was your way of cutting out the noise, so to speak.
Yeah.
But, Amit, let's talk a little bit about why you decided to do noise to start with. I mean, you were part of the fashion business. He was actually trying to get into the aviation business. Unfortunate timing as far as you were concerned. But how did this come about? Because, there is, as I pointed out, a 9-year difference between the two of you. You don't come from a business family. You have no sort of entrepreneurial background. What made both of you start up?
So I think when I was doing my first business that was in fashion, I used to work I was a B2B partner to brands like H&M, Zara. So I was working very closely with them, but I realized that first, businesses are good because these are lifestyle businesses.
Yeah.
They're talking to a set of users who are willing to pay you a little more for a good stuff. But definitely we had a craving for talking to the consumers directly because in B2B businesses, nobody knew you well. I mean, I had to explain my business ki boss ye karta hoon. People never knew what is merchandising all about.
Yeah.
And I was traveling also a lot that time. So I realized ki internationally there is so much stuff available. And when in India you look at it, there was only cheap Chinese knockoffs or brands like Apple, and I think BlackBerry was there for that. So,
yes, BlackBerry was there. I can vouch for that.
Yeah, you're a big fan of that brand actually. So that's how we realized ki can't we do it for ourselves as a user where we are facing problem to buy good stuff which is not available. And anyways, when Gaurav came in, he was more tech actually because I was more lifestyle fashion, he was more tech. That's how we realized let's enter in this, which is forward-looking industry also. I think tech was...
I think one common interest I would say was tech because me being younger, always trying to figure out what is happening in the world, reading all those magazines, going on internet and understanding what is happening on the personal gadget space. And asking the elder brother to get that thing from outside whenever he's traveling for his work.
Achha, that's how it started, ki ye leke aana mere liye.
And then when things start working out, what you'd realize is there's a huge potential of trying these things out in the country. And fortunately or unfortunately, India has been that market where we have not seen very, very aspirational brands coming out of India in this space specifically, right?
And not Indian brands.
Yeah, that's what. So at least when we were growing up in a small town, you had to always either latch on a non-branded stuff or you get these global brands, like you said. So our idea was that there is a lot of Indian consumers who doesn't get catered by both of these brands. We want an experience, but yet what personalized and more Indianized variants of the products. And that's when we started thinking about why don't we get into a space which is more Indianized, yet premium, yet aspirational, and give that value to the consumer and give that experience of a global brand. That's what the backing.
But the audacity to actually go out there and do this. As I pointed out, neither of you have an engineering background. You're not from the IITs, which is the typical Indian tech startup story. You decided not to bring on any venture. What gave you the confidence of saying that, hey, we're going to go into a market and we're going to try and take on the Apples and Samsungs, which are at the aspirational end, and the Chinese brand, which are at the mass and the volume end?
So I think we never thought, first of all, like that we're entering in that space. We started very small. We started...
with covers, essentially.
Doing accessories, basically. Accessories was, we realized that let them play their game, let us be on the other side. And when we slowly started growing up, we realized that there are other spaces we should move on. And definitely we thought that let's go to spaces where there is less competition. It's a little tough to enter. Maybe these kind of businesses would be a small businesses for bigger companies. That's how the idea came in, and it was honestly very tough for us because we neither come from tech. So we have to take help from our friends, family, partners to whom we knew who could help us around. Gradually we pivoted into it. Maybe I would say it was just a courage in us that we like it, we love it, we'll keep going, whatever it takes. And when we started, I think we were very small. I think we never had any recognition also. But gradually we started moving up one by one, and then we are here where we are today.
Yes, and 10 years on, you are here and you've got the legendary Bose company to actually join and come on board as an investor. But I'll come to that in just a second. But, let's talk about the journey and the start specifically. And you acknowledge the fact that it was difficult. You also acknowledge the fact that there wasn't consumer love. There was no instant romance with the consumer. You had to fight for consumer love and consumer trust. Take me through that experience of learning when the consumer rejects you and how you refine the product to come back.
See, I'll be very honest. Like he said, courage has been one thing. I strongly also feel that there has been naiveness that we had because when we were starting, at least I was very young, not knowing how to do businesses. So I had no fear of,
Failure.
Failure.
So for me, it was, giving my 100% and stay still hungry and foolish and try to do things. So there was no egos of, customer ne aisa bol diya, aisa bol diya. Rather, we used to take it very positively, and we used to love when consumer used to give us that feedback. We used to be on call for first few years. I remember there used to be a dedicated line on our desk, which used to allow speaking to a consumer at any random point of time.
And you would be at the other end of the line personally yourself?
Absolutely. We still try to do that a lot, because that's the thing that I think has been one of the reasons for our own success, and staying closer to the consumer has been probably the key, and getting those feedback at the real time and getting them implemented in the real time was also fun. So the moment you used to get a feedback over a call, you was like, "Hey, yaar, ye cheez theek karni hai. Let's go and get that thing also sorted. We have to get these things right, that thing wrong, and all those stuff."
But so much of it was not in your control. I mean, from the manufacturing perspective, it was not in your control. You were largely sort of bringing in things from outside of India. A large part of the assembly was perhaps happening here. How do you then ensure that you deliver on the promise of quality? How do you then ensure that you deliver on the promise of what the consumer wants? Because so much of it is not in your control.
Absolutely. No, so I think fundamentally we are very clear that we are building something for the consumer. It was not like what we like. So we made that mistakes, by the way. Coming back how we started. So first he said, I want covers for mobile phone, which are iPhone. And he used to like some stuff. We built those stuff, designed and got it to India. And we realized there were no buyers for that. So, I mean, we had a fair share of failures. Then we spoke to consumers. They said, "What?"
So, is there a stack of iPhone covers lying somewhere in your home?
Still would be there. So, this is what you think we want, but this is not what we want. So, maybe our learnings, we started talking to consumers a lot, and gradually we realized that let's build something for the consumer. So, we really played emphasis on that, and we were controlling design. We were trying to control a lot which we could do. So, it was not in the air. We knew what we are getting into. So we were a little more planned, I would rather say that. And we did our homework of talking to users. And I think we were very nimble. So we used to bring small batches. We were not afraid of making mistakes. I think the first batch, let's say when we started, was not 50,000 units. Whatever product we did, let's get in 500 units. If it has to go waste, we can let it go waste, because we can take that risk. And then gradually we started moving with experience to 500, to 5,000, to 50,000, now 500,000 a batch.
You talked about how, the failure to fail was not a consideration, was not a factor, but also, starting small and then building yourself up. And that continues to drive the philosophy at Noise. You still have a fairly limited SKU. You still have a fairly limited product portfolio, because you want to continue to stay focused and not spread yourself too thin.
Yeah, so that has been the reality. We made our mistakes early on. When you're doing a mobile accessories, each mobile has a different set of accessories coming along. There are 200 odd phones. You've made plethora of SKUs. I used to, at one particular time, we used to deal with more than 300,000 SKUs differently managed, right? With time, you understand what mistakes you have made, what businesses needs to, if you want to grow better, faster, what are the things that you need to do. So we took those calls on time and realized working on limited things, working on focused is the key for success. And I think probably one of the biggest reason is also the focus. I think we had to say a lot of no's to reach here, probably, I would say. We had
What were the no's that you had to say?
For an example, the biggest no would be, this is selling in the market, you should start selling it too. There is no differentiation that you can bring to the user, neither to the platform that you're selling it to, or neither as a brand you can differentiate yourself. For an example, a wired headphone, right? It used to sell all across the country, and we all have grown up using wired headphones. So it was a very easy category, which is selling in millions every month.
Yeah.
You go and take some share there. So it took us to know that we will not do things that is already commoditized, and we would not be able to make any difference there.
What made you focus on the fact that you wanted to have a differentiated product? You wanted to ensure that you were different, not better, that you were different. Better is, it's a claim that you can make, but different needs to be a point of fact. What made you focus on that?
So I'll come back to this, something adding on what Gaurav said. So, when we were doing accessories, there was a brand called Otterbox. I'm not sure how many of you would know. So they were a $1 billion revenue company based out of US, just doing mobile accessories. We said, why can't we build an Otterbox in India? We forgot that US as a market is just iPhone. And iPhone is a shelf life of 3-4 years. India as a market has got 100 plus models.
200
plus models.
Right.
And the shelf life is 4 months. We made our share of mistakes there. We said कि ठीक है हम भी वैसे ही करते हैं. We'll build models, and 200 models, 10 accessories is like 2,000. added SKU. So we realized that let's focus on less things, not where
Less is more.
less is. So we believe that less is more in people, less is more in product, less is more in capital. So I mean, we believe in that philosophy. Coming back on differentiation. So okay, Gaurav and me were very clear that we don't have capital, and whenever we used to go to talk to, let's say, our partners, let's say Flipkart, they used to talk to us, who are you, yaar, in this game? We would, big brands will kill you out, and we realized, yeah, we don't have capital. We can't fight with big boys around. Let's say Sony's of the universe also, you can't fight.
Yeah.
When somebody came in, do a wired earphone, it sells a lot. I said, why would somebody buy a wired earphone from me? Till the time I don't undercut prices. Undercutting prices means cutting down on cost.
Yeah.
And you're not able to add any value.
Yeah.
So we realized
How long can you play the price game?
Yeah, it's unsustainable.
Yeah. It's unsustainable.
Eventually, you are planning for your own death.
So we realized that we should choose a path which nobody has tried. There is a risk to it, but at least we will have a better chance of success. So I think that that is something which helped us out.
So then what was the pitch to Flipkart?
No, then also...
Go ahead.
No, so I think when we started watches, we were the only brand doing watches actually. And there was only Fitbit and maybe 2-3 bigger brands. Then they said, who are you? You are labels. Why would you sell? Anyways, we both were passionate about watches. We said, let us do it because we need for ourselves.
Yeah.
We had smaller targets. We never were too ambitious, and it's okay. But gradually we started picking up from, maybe we were number 10, then we went to number 9, then gradually up moving in ranking and to number 1 after 3-4 quarters. Then they said, no, we believe now you can do it.